have no idea how I'm going to attempt to talk about what I've experienced throughout my life and how my perception has shifted and changed and grown over time. I have no idea how I'm meant to unpack that in its immensity, but I feel very compelled to try, and it feels very important that I attempt to convey what feels unspeakable, like the unspoken language. And it's something that I'm always drawn back to, is this attempting to express the unexpressible, unexplainable, the profound mystery that is life. And so in this first episode, I purposefully haven't planned anything because I want to lean into this overwhelm. I want to lean into what feels impossible to explain. And everything that kind of goes along with that. You know, trusting oneself, trusting my own beliefs in the midst of so much contrast and so many differing opinions. And also the denigration and suppression of anything otherworldly. So it's always felt like my life path to attempt to convey the unspeakable through language, the art of language, through storytelling, film, music, travel, and of course, humanity, other people, and the infinite intricacy of woven lenses in which we absorb our own novel experience that is the human life. And so there's this very strong desire in me to begin that journey, and it's the overwhelm that has stopped me countless times. I've produced a lot of content attempting to forge this path, but it has been my own kind of sense of lack and self-doubt and self-criticism that has stopped me in my tracks, and kind of that egoic nature that really steps in and dominates my ability to feel free in myself. And this kind of false form that feels very dominant in my decision making and how I perceive myself. It's kind of this mind complex, I guess you could call it. But what I've been noticing is that the heart space is having this reawakening. And it's been building for quite some time now. And for me personally, I've been feeling again. I've been through this feeling, reconnection to feeling, I'm processing things through my emotions. And through this emotionality, and it responds through these different emotional portals or avenues. And tied into that, grief and sorrow and despair and sadness. But this foundation of reverence and appreciation and gratitude. And I've been finding myself crying lately, which feels very cathartic, as though something is being released and finally expressed from my body, from my being. Something that has been bound up within me. And for myself, being a very emotional person, I know something's wrong when I stop feeling. And I just kind of become numb and dissociate. And it's this mind complex, it's coming back to this over-intellectual way of existence that we have become very accustomed to. The mind tries to think its way incessantly and relentlessly out of experiences that we have throughout our lives, situations. And this is particularly noticeable when that experience is a negative one. For me personally, the mind complex becomes very noticeable when I'm in an uncomfortable situation, because we're so used to using our minds to think our way out or navigate through our lives. And this obviously sounds like a very obvious sort of statement. But what I've noticed time and time again, when my heart comes back online, when my feelings are able to seep through the many layers of the mind complex, these problems or challenges that I'm used to facing through the conduit of thought, looking for these solutions that my mind autonomously takes charge of. When my heart space comes online, when I lead from my heart, these previously perceived problems or issues kind of dissipate instantly in the face of the heart space. These complexes and these complex issues or dynamics or experiences relating to all facets of our lives, whether in relationships, our jobs, our social kind of circles, and our personal lives. Kind of this phenomena just needs to be felt in order to be navigated. And each time that shift occurs within me, it never ceases to amaze me, just the way the heart knows. it's almost like it dissipates all problems effortlessly. And that's kind of what I'm going through right now. And it makes me realize more and more how much we've disconnected from our heart space and our ability to feel. And when feelings do finally arrive for me, sometimes the emotional release or felt response is so visceral and potent that I can understand why I've unconsciously suppressed that in the past. And I also can understand my addictive tendencies, why I have an addictive sort of personality. And I feel it's related to me being a very emotional person. And I feel things very deeply, and sometimes that can be to my own detriment, because I become too woven into experiences that don't necessarily match that kind of level of emotional involvement, if that makes sense. And so I think I've kind of unconsciously created these patterns of behavior to sort of numb out having to plunge into those feelings at depth every time. And so in these moments when the feelings are finally able to be felt, I can understand and observe beneath the surface the mechanics of my psychology and my physiology. I can understand what is happening to a bit more of a fundamental level, because addiction for me personally has felt, and I think it's just the nature of addiction, it feels very hopeless, and it's kind of, it feeds back into itself and it exacerbates that numbness and that dissociative sort of complex. And it feels insurmountable and very enclosing and isolating. I kind of thought it's important to speak when we have these moments of higher perspective of our own idiosyncrasies, because it allows me to take charge of my life once again. And for me, this feeling capacity, our capacity for deep presence in the felt moment, it allows myself to break open to that which feels like the most profound avenue for healing. So I thought that was a good place to start from, because it's kind of ground zero in a way. It's ground zero in that it's moving away from the dominant mind complex that operates and dictates our society and our global society as a whole. And it kind of redirects the trajectory of human consciousness back towards the heart-centered, expansive, soul-connected sort of existence, which we essentially all come from. Our ancestors, our deep communities of our ancestral lineages would have all experienced this to probably a level that we can't even comprehend. And so what I feel is happening very potently right now is this return to source, this return to our source, in which we are immensely connected and sentient life forms. That are capable of a depth of feeling that we cannot even grasp our capacity to feel and connect to one another. And so this is really dedicated to that cause, reopening this wild, entangled pathway back to the heart, and not slashing and burning our way through as we have for so long, but accepting what is there and finding our way through that is in cohesion and connection with nature and community. And this reignition of the heart is really at the epicenter of that cause. And it's a crazy thing to witness that each time in myself, because the path becomes so clear in that moment. And it's a crazy contrast, because I've tried to solve this problem through the mind complex. When I connect back to my authentic nature, it just feels like home again. I no longer feel alone. And it's like this inner child is emerging from within me. And with that emergence comes a feeling of belonging and a feeling of returning home. It's quite nostalgic. And there's a lot tied to that. So it really is what we all must get back to, what we must return to. And to me, there's no greater cause than that of the heart. And with that being said, that's definitely going to be the kind of foundation or the catalyst for my work. And without realizing it, it's always been the catalyst. I've attempted to do a lot of this work without actually being connected to my heart and being completely unaware. So when that actually happens, this re-expansion, it's a crazy transmutational sort of event that occurs within me. Let's forge this path together. There are a lot of people doing this work on the planet, and a lot of people that believe in this truth. And it's about each and every one of us returning to what is familiar for ourselves, for our lives, and to use that to be in service to humanity. There is no greater path